Assalamu alaikum dear students, welcome to the course of media management. Course code is JMC-353 and this is lecture number 12. Topic is editorial administration. Dear students, my name is Rashid Ishaq and I am lecturer in Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Cohort, University of Science and Technology, Cohort. Dear students, in today's topic I will discuss the editorial administration. I will discuss the complete structure of some newspaper organization, and I will discuss a newspaper organizational model in detail. Dear students, this is a complete organizational model of some newspaper organization. In this model, the whole supreme authority, the top leader is the publisher, and editor works under the supervision of the publisher, and the managing editor works under the editor in the same vertical line. Dear students, the editorial page editor works under the supervision of the editor, and the editorial writers works under the editorial page editors. Students, now the rest of the department is controlled and managed by the managing editor. City editor works under the supervision of managing editor, and the assistant city editor and the reporter works under the city editors. The second one is the state regional editor. State and regional editor works under the command of the managing editor, and the assistant state and regional editor and the reporter works under the state regional editors, state or the regional editors. Students, the chief copy editor and the copy editor works under the same vertical line under the supervision of managing editor, and the business editor, assistant business editor and the reporter works under the same vertical line under the supervision of managing editors. Photo editor and the photographers are very great jobs in the newspaper organization, basic jobs, because newspaper with the help of photographs looks very good and very attractive. So the photo editor and the photographers works under the same vertical line and under the supervision of the managing editors. Sports editor and assistant sports editor and reporters works under the same vertical line under the supervision of managing editor, in which the sports editor is the top of the list, is the super main head of this department, who works under the managing editor, and assistant sports editor works under the sports editor, and the reporters works under the assistant sports editors relevant to the sports activities. Lifestyle editor, assistant lifestyle editor and reporters works under the supervision of managing editor, and the graphics editor and graphics reporters and artists works under the same vertical line under the supervision of managing editor. Design editor, layout editors design and layout editors works under the supervision of managing editors. So students, this is the complete model of some newspaper organization in which publisher is on the top, editors and managing editors works under the supervision of publisher, where the editorial page editor and the editorial writers work under the supervision of editors. City editor, assistant city editor, reporters works under the supervision of managing editor, and state regional editor, assistant state regional editor and reporters works under the supervision of managing editor. Business editor, sports editor, lifestyle editor, design editor, graphics editor, photo editor and chief copy editor works under the supervision of managing editor. Okay students, this is the explanation of the model. Publisher is the person who is responsible for all of the operations, all of the function, all of the works of the newspaper, both which is relevant to the editorial, the written form, presentable form, and on the business side, advertisers, connection to advertisers, taking advertising and selecting and designing some business for the newspaper. The main job of the publisher is to see that the newspaper remains financially healthy or not. Students, editor is responsible for all of the editorial content of the newspaper, which is in the form of written, and for the budget and money spent by editorial side of the newspaper. Often in small newspapers, the publisher and the editor is the same person. So editor is the person which works and checks and balances all the content which is to be published in the newspaper. Either these are columns, features, news, stories, each and everything. Okay, students, the editorial page editorial pages, which is located inside of the newspaper, where the editorials, features, columns, and different type of interpretative type of stories are published. So the editorial page editor is responsible for the editorial page and the op-ed page of the newspaper. These pages are where the newspaper's editorials are printed, as I discussed, as well as the letter to editor, columns by syndicated columnists, and guests columns by the local peoples. Okay, students, the managing editor is a person who is in charge of day-to-day production, because new way concept is practical and nowadays newspapers organization, because every new day people have some new choices and new likes and new dislikes. So day-to-day production is managed and controlled by managing editor. And the city editor, sometime called the metro editor, is in charge of the news coverage of the area in which the newspaper is located. The city editor usually has the largest staff and assigns tasks to most of the local news reporters. So the city editor most of the time having concern about some city or some specific areas, and they send reporters to some specific fields and directions to collect stories from the very targeted locations. News reporter is a person which gathers information from stories in the local newspaper, local area. There are two types of reporters. One is the beat reporter and the other is the assignment reporter. Beat reporter, which is specialized in some very specific location, a specific direction, a specific field subject, like legal reporting, parliamentary reporting, political reporting, etc. And assignment editor, on the other hand, covers any story assigned by city editor. Okay, student, the chief copy editor is in charge of the newspaper's copy desk. The people on the copy desk read news stories to make sure they are written according to the newspaper standards, according to newspaper policies, according to newspaper's rules, regulation, etc. The chief copy editor makes final decision about the story, yet it should be published or not in the newspaper. And next one is the copy editor. A copy editor is specially trained to read the stories that others have written and make sure they conform with the rules of the grammars, either it is grammatically correct, a style is correct, a sequence is correct or not. A copy editor also writes headlines and performs other duties that help to produce newspaper every day. Students, photo editor is not a photographer, but he checks and balances, he checks and selects the publishable photographs for the newspaper. Graphic designer, the graphic editor is the head of the graphic department, sometimes called the art department. This editor is in charge of all the graphics and illustrations produced for the newspaper on daily basis. Graphics reporter researches and designs informational graphics that supports news stories. The paper. A graphics reporter is an expert in graphics forms and also must be able to inform local information that can be used to build the graphics. Students, if you have any questions, you can ask, and this was a very simple model of the newspaper as I discussed. So thank you so much.